I guess my question is probably for Mark and perhaps for Professor Iroglu. Uh, it seems like collaboration works best when teams are co-located. You both kind of alluded to that, the barriers, but it also seemed like it it wasn't necessarily that the teams had to be in the same room. There was kind of a local maximum if they were in the same city, perhaps. Any insight into what the optimum arrangement is for maximum effectiveness of collaboration?
All right. Yes. Um, well, yes. This they looked at different configurations. So, uh, the team could be in the same building, different floors, or in the same city, different buildings. And then they actually studied some 80 development teams, and they looked at different ways of managing teams. So, one aspect was the technical aspect, technical management aspect. The other one was more social, cultural aspect, and then they measured different ways of managing the teams. What they found in general, and then I can email you the article if you just shoot me a quick email. What they basically found was the differences in the social and cultural aspects don't make a big difference in the performance. But what really affects the performance is how structured the communication is. So if you leave it to people located at different places, then people tend to drop the ball. But if you put a structure, if you hold a tight leash, so to speak, not in a hierarchical sense, but just follow up, then people the team tends to perform better because they're on task more of the time. So that would be my insight.
So in practice, you can see we're still struggling with those barriers to a seamless interaction. I think if I can use Amy's term earlier, it depends, of course, on the type of meeting that you have. I think we could kind of separate the two general categories of work for us, which is knowledge creation versus knowledge transfer. If you're simply kind of sharing or updating through some tools to a remote site, it's fairly effective. But if you're really trying to work back and forth, there's really no substitute for face-to-face, in that room, at the whiteboard, looking eye to eye at each other and reading all the cues and subtleties that make up effective collaboration. It'll get there, but it's not there yet, and that's what we're all working towards is getting those barriers down so that it can get close to that really natural interaction that we crave.
Related, how much is trust, establishing trust, an obstacle in collaboration?
I think trust is the most significant factor in establishing an effective collaborative team.
And that happens face to face.
It certainly starts, and when we know that a team needs to work virtually, we do whatever we can to at least initially get that team together, to build some relationships and start to build trust face to face when it's possible.
This question is actually for Scott. When you were talking about the solution provisions from PTC software, one of your elements or one of your features was single source of truth. And in collaborative, innovative innovation networks, one other dilemma is how do we agree upon the facts and how do we agree what is actually truth? So, do you have a way of sort of improving the quality of the data that's in the database in some way? Like, how do you conduct data quality assurance to get to that single source of quote unquote truth?
Right. So that's good. You kind of got me on two things at once, which is good. So kind of that mantra that we have that we can call it a database and we can call it lots of different things, but when we call it a single source of truth, it's the one place you go to get the product data, right? But on top of that, if I think of the data that's in there and how do we qualify it, right? So let's say I have this 3D CAD model. How do I know it fits with its partner 3D CAD model? How do these two things go together? A lot of those come down to how you kind of put the solutions together and what your specific need is. So let's stay with that one for 1 second. If I want to validate those 3D CAD models, there's tools within the CAD system to say, do these things go together? Do they interfere? Do they function correctly? And if they don't, did they get a check mark, and was that approved? Right. So I have this kind of method to quantify, did this particular item, let's say 3D model again, did it pass all the requirements that it has for this particular product? And you can go through a specific checklist and approve that.
Hi, good morning. I'm Victor Seidel. I'm on the faculty here. And before I pursued my academic career, I worked with IBM for a number of years and was just really interested as an engineer and then a manager the different cultural approaches to product development among our Japanese counterparts or different regions. You know, there are different ways of maybe breaking down a problem. I'm wondering maybe for Scott and Mark, who are involved in thinking about tools and bringing together broad international teams to collaborate, do you see any differences about how people use different IT tools in different cultures or in different nations? Are there different ways in which people have adopted tools that have provided some interesting insight about the use of a certain type of tool in Korea that's then maybe disseminated otherwise, or just some interesting observations about different approaches to maybe the same type of IT tool?
I'll take one if you don't mind. All right. So I'll give you an example. When we kind of scaled up our office in Shanghai and our presence in China, I had 6 people in Shanghai that I was working with, and their hands down preferred method was MSN Communicator. If I logged into MSN Communicator, ding, everybody sent me a message. Everybody wanted to know what I was doing. Everybody wanted to know what was going on. As soon as I logged out, I had no idea what was going on. Right? If I logged into our corporate messaging system, I would never find them on there. If I sent them emails, maybe they would reply back. So it was weird because it was a culture thing that I wasn't used to. I had used MSN Messenger maybe a couple years before, but then kind of dropped it because we weren't using it at work. It was an outside tool. But they were younger, and we would chit-chat little pictures and faces, and that gave me a more personal rapport with everybody by being able to do that. And that's one example. But I think you're right. There is some kind of level of acceptance to what kind of tools people use, and some people are more accepting of one technology versus another, right? So let's see, in the PTC office we have Microsoft Link. So integrated voice, video, instant messaging, and screen sharing all in one. We've had it for about 3 months. It's been like a revolutionary breakthrough at the company, because I think we were like you. Well, what are we going to do? Oh, we have a live meeting. But then you got to book your audio over there. But then you got to change this other thing over here. But then you got to book it in Outlook, and you got to send it to everybody. All right, so it's kind of an evolutionary process, and I think people tend to grow their own favorites. But over time, we're all kind of pulling them together, because I think what happens is you see things that other people use. So I'll go with a shameless plug, Real-Time Board. Never heard of it until yesterday. Thought it was the coolest product I had ever seen. It's just a real-time board, and you can move it around and put whatever you want. You can invite your whole team, and you put all your items on the board. And I thought it was great for running a meeting, just something I had never seen before.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
In terms of the cultural piece, I think it's a combination of age and culture. And, our Shanghai and Seoul colleagues are really kind of the early adopters of some of the technology and communication tools. But the things that work are quickly adopted with the rest of the company.
Yeah, I actually have a question related to that, and I'm wondering if the audience could provide some insights. Recently there was a high-profile action taken by Yahoo CEO Marissa Mayer, I think, and she, I think, banned telecommuting, and so I was thinking, okay, now is this a decision related to improving in-house collaboration in product development, or was it a way to kind of like weed out people who didn't, work at home so diligently? So I was wondering if you guys had any insights. Would it backfire? Would it work?
Well, Amy, because your company's virtual, I mean, I was thinking of that when you were talking as well, is what do you think about what Meyer has done, where basically saying you can't telecommute, you gotta come into the office.
Right. Yeah, and also too, as a recent mom, I got this whole new thing I struggle with in terms of work-life balance and finding the way that works for me. It's all I can say about is the firm that I work for, and because of how we are culturally set up, I mean, that's just inherent in who we are. We expect people to get their stuff done. We expect them to work in a virtual manner. We expect them to figure out how to collaborate with each other. We give them the tools they need. We give them some of these great technologies that you're talking about, and it's just expected. It's certainly a challenge for companies that aren't used to doing it that way, and I don't know. I think I work personally better knowing that my company expects me to do my job and to do these things, but also that they trust me to find my own work-life balance. And that actually makes me more loyal. It makes me work harder. It makes me find ways to be more efficient at what I do so that I can continue to have a better balance. So putting it, I think, back on the employee, like that's Calypso's culture. It's our responsibility to make that work. And maybe it's just a cultural thing. It's different for everybody, but it's almost more empowering for me, and I don't ever want to work anywhere else because I'm just so empowered to do what I do and figure out the best way to do that.
I'll comment on that from our perspective, right? We're a company, and thanks. And where are we moving to? Online courses, right? So virtual, our students are virtual, we're virtual. And so we have to move that way. And if we don't, then we're not taking advantage of technology. So, I think that's what you've been discussing is, how do we use technology effectively? So my point of view, as in education, we have to go virtual. We have to work virtual. And I like it.
Yeah, I would say the same. I'm not at Yahoo, but I've worked where we worked, 16 hours in person in design teams, day after day. And I still work those kind of hours, but now it's so much more in my control. And I don't see how we can be global and expect the physical connection. I think we have to keep pushing to across time zones. I mean, we meet at very bizarre times because of always working globally. So I just think we better find good ways to. I like the idea of the hybrid is the one thing we talk about in education, but I think also the idea of you getting your team together. So finding those times when we do have that physical presence, but maybe it's not everybody in the room at the same time, but in smaller waves. So I hope that is not a model of the future of dictation. Thanks.
I just want to comment on that too. I've been involved in some research, and there's other research out there as well about virtual teams and about the notion of trust. And all the research on virtual teams says the best thing to do is to get them to meet in the beginning for at least a couple of days, where the team sets roles, responsibilities, but they also get to know each other personally, because in some cultures, they won't contact you via technology if they've never met you before. They won't use instant messenger or anything else. So again, a lot of the research on virtual teams says you've got to get the people together at the beginning. You want to do some of the work stuff, but you got to also build in that social time so that then when they do go back to wherever they are, they now have some connection and then they can build trust. So, technology is here and we all need to use it, but it's not a replacement for that face-to-face, which is how trust begins to be built. So I think that's something we all also have to think about, even potentially maybe with our students.
Thank you. So I think this is probably a question for Scott or Mark, or feel free to answer also, the other gentleman. So I work at EMC, big company. A lot of most effective collaboration that I find is just kind of like water cooler talk, informal, stop by someone's office. Hey, let's grab a conference room and quickly whiteboard, work through it. So maybe for Scott, a day or two in the office a week. How do you leverage, informal communication? Because, even like Mark saying that, you have an hour-long meeting, 75% of that is the only really effective time, so it becomes more formal. How do you find time to, have those kind of informal communications? Is it is it with communicator, or is it, instant messaging?
It's, for me, it really depends on where the people are located. So one example would be the team in India. So I can talk to them up until 9 a.m. and pretty much after that they've gone home. So there are times that I'll just get up early and I just start going down the list. Hey, Amit, how's it going today? What are you doing? How was that photo show you went to? Because I don't get any cooler time with them. I don't get any hallway chat with them, right? And that is the one reason why I still show up in the office at least once a week, is because when you're there, you're going to bump into somebody, you're going to learn about something, you're going to talk about something that's not kind of just in the daily travels that you're doing to get your particular project done or your work done. So it is pretty valuable. That's one method that I use. And others is I tend to just reach out to people, right? So I often call it, instant message phishing, right? I need to know something about a topic and I don't know the answer. I just open it up. Hey, do you know about this? Do you know about this? Hey, my name's Scott. I just introduced myself, and there's people that are around the globe that I've never met, but I ask them tons of questions because somehow I need to get an answer, and it's the only way to do that. And then eventually I end up meeting people from all different places and in all different facets of the company, which is really great because I then add them to my list, and then I add them to our our internal social network, and so then we can exchange things that way, which works pretty good.
At our office, it's we have this large stairwell between the first and second floor, and that's where it all happens. In fact, we have a little landing halfway up, and I swear half the meetings happen there, and it's great. We are constantly trying to arrange and evolve the space to increase those pathways, those social interactions, and we try, and I'm sure you have as well. The couches and the small little stop-offs or the little kiosks or bar stools, just to facilitate a little nook, a little intersection zone, so that those interactions happen because they are so important.